Thanks for watching Volunteer Audio. I'm Jay, and today I'm going to show you how to upgrade the speakers in your 2023 Harley-Davidson CVO Street Glide. So if you follow Volunteer Audio, you know that we bought this new CVO for the sole purpose of designing a much better audio system than what comes factory. Now, sight unseen, hadn't even heard one before, we knew if it came with the factory HD audio by Rockford, there was going to be a lot of improvement we could make. So since 2021, all the CVOs have shipped with HD audio by Rockford. We've took a lot of it out, talked to so many of you that were so dissatisfied with the output of the sound system. So when we got our new bike, we knew it probably wasn't going to be great. And after listening to it, it was so heavily distorted. And we did a video in the past showing you where we tested the output of the radio, showed what we feel are the best EQ specs that we want you to set it as well as tested the output of the amplifier. And that 500 watt factory amplifier is supposed to be 125 watts by 4 at 2 ohm. Only did like 79 watts. Now some of you are going to think, well, maybe you should do the new amp update. Well, I'm going to tell you, I've already done the new amp update. We got the software from Harley, we updated the radio, and it didn't do anything to the output of the amplifier. What it did do is it changed some of the EQ settings. So we'll go over that a little while later when we're done, but that brings us to today. I wanted to show you how to upgrade your speakers because factory, it has this very small, underpowered 5x7. And when I say underpowered, what I mean is, it's pretty much doing all it can for the amount of power that this bike does factory. Now, I've already removed this cover. This was a little plastic cover to show you how small the magnet was on the back of it. Now, Harley offers what they call a stage 3 upgrade. You can go back to the dealer and you can give $600 for a pair of 6x9s that drop in this hole. It's pretty much the same speaker, still underpowered, under quality, and when you're done, you're going to have $600 spent that in the future when you realize, I want to do the amp upgrade because Volunteer Audio has finally released it, you're going to realize I threw my money away on those speakers. So what we wanted to do was show you how that you can install a set of Hertz SX690Neo 6x9s in your lids right now. You can put a set of SX165Neo 6.5s in the fairing now, and later when we introduce our amp upgrade, you're going to have the ability to do this huge amplifier and they're going to handle all that power and you're not throwing any money away or starting over. But in the meanwhile, you're going to have an amazing sounding system because we're going to show you how to set the EQ to get the most out of these speakers. We're also going to show you how to change out the front Rockfords to the Hertz. They're roughly 5 to 6 dB louder, they're crisper, they're cleaner, they're going to sound substantially better in the front. The 6x9s actually play more bass. They're more full sounding. They handle the craziness of what's coming out of this radio just fine. I've already installed them and tested them. I wouldn't tell you to do it if I hadn't already done it. And it sounds so much better. So putting the Hertz speakers in makes a huge improvement now. Some of you may decide to never do the amp. And if you don't, so be it. I'm glad that all you had to do was change speakers to get happy. But the rest of you that have had an amazing system in the past on your Harley, later on, you're going to want to add the amplifier. It's going to be a plug and play setup that we've been working on, and we'll have it available first of the year. So let's dive into this bike. I'm going to show you how to take the fairing off, how to get the speaker pods out, how to take the speakers out. We'll compare those when we do it, and how to put the new ones in. Then we'll go to the back. I'll show you how to remove the factory 5x7s and show you what it takes to modify a 6x9 to drop in this hole. Now don't get scared with modify. We're not going to modify the bike in any way, and we're actually going to pre-modify the speaker before we ship it to you when you buy it for this bike. So it's as easy as bolting it in and plugging into speaker wires. So hang out. We're going to start taking it apart. I'll go through all of it. We'll go in great detail, so watch the rest of the video. But right now, I need you to like this video. Like the video. That helps us. It moves it up in search results. Other people will find it, and we'll be able to help them make their CVO sound better too. Also subscribe to the channel for all the future updates. If you've already been following Volunteer Audio, you know we've already done Chromeworks exhaust on this bike. We've already showed you the before and after footage of that, and there'll be many other upgrades we hope to do, and they're all going to be on this channel. So subscribe to the channel so you will see that. If you're not currently a subscriber, go back and watch that video. It's pretty awesome because we've already tackled the terrible sound of the motor. Now we're going to fix the terrible sound of the audio system. All right, so first I'm going to show you how to disassemble and remove the outer fairing. Now you're going to think, he's crazy. I think I can take these speakers out without pulling the fairing and the speaker pods, and you will find out you're wrong because I've already been there and done it. We remove the grill from the speaker. They give you 4 access holes to unscrew the speaker, but there's no way you're going to get it out of this hole until you remove the fairing and the pod. So I'll show you the right way to do it and try to save you some time. So let's go around here to the front of the fairing. I want to make sure first thing you've put something over your fender to protect it. If you drop anything on these fenders, they're pretty thin, you're going to leave a dent. We don't want that to happen. So it could be anything from a shop towel, a towel from in your house, or in this case, we've got a fender protector from Harley. Do that because we don't want you to have to repaint or fix something on your fender. Now we're going to start with a Torx. I believe we've got a T25. We do. T25 is going to fit these windshield bolts. Now you're going to see some of these bolts in this process are T27, some are T25. The T25 is close enough that it will take all of them out. So you don't have to swap back and forth. If you see that something's just way too tight, you might grab the 27 and move forward. But first we're going to take our 4 windshield bolts out. Each one of these has a little plastic washer underneath it, so keep track of that washer. You don't want to lose that because we're going to be putting it back on. And something that kind of freaked me out the first time I took the windshield off, you'll see there's some little parts, little marks that almost look like a crack around each one of these holes. There's a TSB out from Harley. It's actually, a lot of people have been upset about it or worried about it. They're mold marks. It's from where they made it. It is not a crack. You didn't crack it. It's not cracked already. That's factory. It's supposed to be there. So you'll see those marks at each one of these screw holes. So get all 4 of these screws out. Get your little plastic washers. Now grab your windshield and just slide it up and forward to take it out. We're going to set it to the side for now. All right, so underneath your windshield, you're going to see these 4 other Torx bolts. Now these are probably the 27s, but they're going to come right out with our T25. So I'm going to remove those 4 bolts now. All right, at that point, we're just going to lift this up and set it to the side as well. All right, so on the other side here, we're going to go to the front side to this vent. You're going to find that you have another T25 bolt right here underneath this little lever. It's the only one holding this on. Once you get that done, you can just grab and pull this towards you. By doing so, you're releasing these 2 white clips, and that's going to come off. So from the front side, I want you to go ahead and remove the screw that holds each one of the speaker grills on. There's just one T27 or T25 in the bottom corner. Once you have that removed, you can just grab the speaker grill and just pull out. It's got a couple little plastic clips as well. It's going to let that come off. We're going to do that on both sides. Again, it's going to look like this speaker will come out. It will not come out. And this isn't a hard process, so just follow along with me. I want you to rotate your mirror so you get access to the screw that's behind it. So let's go and remove that screw. Same thing, T25 Torx. Now you're going to notice that the screw at the top and the bottom one, they're going to be longer. They're going to be the same length. We're going to do this on each side. Both of these screws are the same length. Now in the middle here though, you're going to have another T25 and it's going to be a shorter bolt. So when you go back together, you're going to want to put the short bolt in the middle. If you put a long one where a short one is, you could, when you tighten it up, come out and damage the outer fairing. So you'll see there's a short one and 2 long ones. Keep track of that. So 3 bolts on each side. We're going to go around and do the other side. All right, so we're going to turn our handlebars to the right. Now I want you to look right here. You're going to see this plug. This black plug, if you'll just push this clip and unplug it, that's actually your headlight. They made it very easy on these models to undo that before you get your fairing off. So you don't have to undo it and then you're standing there holding the fairing trying to unplug your headlight. Let's come around to this side. Now we've only got 2 more bolts. We have one on each side that was covered by that trim earlier at the vent. As we remove these, the fairing will be loose and it will want to come off. So we want to make sure we're holding and supporting this fairing. At that point, you're just going to take your fairing. It's off and we're going to set it to the side. All right, I want you to go ahead and unplug some connectors here at the radio. So come over here and I'll show you how to do that. On the main radio plug, it's going to have this yellow tab. You're just going to pull up on that. As you do that, it's going to unplug this connector. I've got a few extra wires here because we've been doing a lot of testing about this radio. You probably won't have those. We're going to undo our USB. Just press in on this little brown tab and unplug it. We're also going to undo our GPS antenna. There's a little button on the side that we're going to push in. It's going to release it. Let me show you that little button. It's right here, that little blue button. You're going to push it in. Now down here at the bottom, this is our FM antenna. We're going to push in on the tab on it and slide it out as well. You're just pushing in on the end of this little white plastic tab. Now you'll notice it's pretty cool. So it's a new hidden antenna on the CVOs that's mounted to the top of our speaker pod. Be careful you don't damage this during what we're doing. We're unplugging it so when we take the pod off, we don't try to mess any of this wiring up. The other pod has our GPS antenna on it. So we're going to undo that GPS antenna and we're going to feed it over here and make sure that it's loose and it's to the side. At this time, I want you to go ahead and come down here to the bottom of the speaker pods, and you're going to have a plug on each side. This plug is the speaker connection for the front pods. We're going to go ahead and unclip it from the frame, and we're going to do that on both sides. So it's unplugged. We also undid the clip that's holding it into the chassis there. So now, we're going to take some of the bolts out of the speaker pod. There's two out here that are easy to get to. I'm going to leave those in until last because I want it to hold everything in place while I'm taking the harder bolts out. So these are probably T27s as well. I've got a T25, and what it allows me to do though is to get to these bolts, break them loose, and take them out without having to pull the Rockford amp out of the fairing. Let's come up here where you can see a little better. We're going to start by removing this lower bolt here at the base of the radio. And this is, I had you unplug the radio connector because this bolt comes pretty much out right to it. I'm going to take this a good ways out, and it's going to be the last one that I take all the way out at the end once I get the pod kind of loose. The upper one is going to be much easier to get to. We're going to remove it all the way. Now these are longer bolts. All of these bolts are the same length. The two on the outside are the shorter ones. We're going to come around here and remove this bolt. Goes through the pod on this side. Then we have another one here at the bottom of it coming through the other side of this framework. Not hard to get to, much easier than the older Street Glides to get to all the speaker pod bolts. All right, so what we have left now is the two short ones. And the reason we removed the speaker grill, the bolt that holds it on actually screws into this speaker pod. So by going ahead and taking it loose, it's going to make it easier to get the pod out because you don't want to forget and try to pull it out later. Now I want to take the last few threads out of this one at the radio. We're going to go ahead and take our pod all the way off. Now as you get this loose, you're going to have to feed this speaker wire through this hole. And then take your pod, let's set it over to the side. Let's go ahead and take our other pod off because we're going to take them both off and then we're going to change our speakers. Same thing, we're going to take this lower bolt out. This one's a little easier on this side because it doesn't come out into that radio plug. I'm going to remove it all the way. Let's go and take the top one out. Now, if you have a hard time getting to it, you could easily undo this amplifier and get it out of your way. It just has 4 bolts holding it in, 1 plug on the end, but it's not necessary. We'll have future videos where we're pulling that out and we're showing you how to upgrade to a bigger one once we get all the interfacing built for that. Same thing as the other side. We've got a bolt here. We have 1 more at the bottom. So as a recap, we've removed 4 of the longer bolts. Now we just have the 2 short ones left holding the pod on. Same thing, once you get it out so far, you're going to grab that speaker wire, feed it back through this hole so you can take the pod and set it to the side. All right, so far a T25 has done everything we've needed to do in the front. We're also going to use that same tool now and remove the 4 screws holding in the factory HD Audio by Rockford speaker in the fairing. Now I highly suggest doing this because the largest improvement you're going to get is going to be from these front speakers. The Hertz SX165Neo is substantially louder and clearer, and it's going to be the one pointed at you, so it's going to be most likely to make that largest difference while riding down the road. The 6x9 is going to add a little more mid-bass, which is great with its larger surface area, but to get the most, you're going to want to do the front as well. All right, so here is our speaker that we've got out. I'm going to grab one of the HD Audio by Rockford speakers from last year from the non-new body style so we can compare those. So this is the speaker that came in the 19 and newer CVOs. This is the 23. Not much difference to it. It appears to be the same size. The only real difference I see is instead of having a single tweeter on the front, it looks to have a bridge that has 2 different tweeters on it. Maybe to try to get a little more clarity or a little more output. So far I can tell you after listening to them, I really can't tell a difference. I don't see any improvement between them. The other thing about both of these speakers is that neither one has really any magnetic properties. It's kind of crazy how small the magnet is. Rockford's been really bad to undersize their Neo magnet, so there is no real strength to it. There's no major power handling, and at the same time, because of that, they get really hot and tend to overheat. The answer on the 5x7 was they actually bolted a plastic cap over top of it. It makes you think it's got a bigger magnet. All it really has is a piece of plastic protecting things from getting messed up, melted, or too hot from this undersized speaker magnet. Now on our Hertz speakers, we're gonna have a really, really strong Neo magnet that will grab pretty much anything metal that we have around, and it will handle a tremendous amount of power. So we're gonna pick up added clarity and output, but we also have a speaker that'll handle a much larger amp if you later decide to upgrade it. So instead of buying the Rockford speaker, it's $600 at the dealer, and not being able to do anything else then but start completely over, we think the Hertz is a much better idea. It's less cost than the Rockford speaker, but it's going to give you a better sound, and you can add to it later. All right, so let me show you the speaker we're going to put in our speaker pod. This is the Hertz SX165Neo. This speaker is a 200 watt peak power speaker. It's more than double the wattage that Rockford says theirs will handle, but it also has an extremely clear, crisp tweeter. It's going to give us clarity. You're going to hear the edges of the strings, and it's going to be much more musical sounding. Not only are we going to get a lot more output, but we're going to be able to hear what we're listening to even more clearly than we can with the other speaker. This is definitely, I think, the largest improvement. This is my bike, and there's no other speaker I would put in it than this one. On top of that, it's a direct drop-in speaker. So it's going to fit the exact pattern of the stock speaker, all the way down to having this little dowel that's going to line up with our speaker to hold it in the right position. We are going to take these two terminals, we're going to crimp them a little tighter just to make sure that they don't ever come loose. I'm just going to squeeze the end of those slightly with a pair of pliers. Do that on both of them. Now the larger black connector is going to be your speaker negative. So you're going to connect it to the negative terminal on your speaker. The smaller clear one is going to be the positive. After that, we're simply going to drop it back in the hole, lining that hole up with that dowel pin and putting our 4 screws back in. Now we're going to repeat this process on the other side, then we're going to go back to the bike and show you how to put the pod right back on. All right, so we got our Hertz speaker loaded in our pod. We're going to go back on. Same thing as earlier. Take this speaker terminal and you'll see this triangle toward the front, toward the headlight, and you're going to stick your speaker wire through there. We also want to make sure that we take our GPS antenna and stick it up top. Now I'm going to start with the hard to get to one right down here at the radio plug first. It's going to be a little easier to start if we've got our pod loose. You can get your hand in there and kind of start it by hand. You go and take your tool and don't go tight with it, but spin it most of the way in. All right, now that I've got one started, it's not going to fall. I'm going to go and do these two shorter outside ones. Again, we're not going to tighten any of these down until we get them all started. The two short ones, again, are on this outside, going back into that inner fairing. We don't want to put the long ones because you may risk coming out the other side and damaging the fairing. Now this speaker pod is definitely part of the frame. So every one of these screws needs to go back in because everything it ties to is actually the support that keeps your fairing from vibrating around. Put our last bolt in here at the top. After I get this one in, I'm going to go ahead and tighten it down, and then we're going to go back over and tighten all the rest of them. We'll go ahead and plug our radio back in because now we don't have to get back to that bolt. Once you slide this in, just push down on that yellow tab and it's going to lock it in place. We're not going to plug the GPS antenna in quite yet. We want to get our other pod in place first. All right, so similar as we did on the other side, we're going to keep in mind where our FM antenna is, but we're going to feed our speaker wire through that triangle that is facing toward where the headlight would go. And bring it out the bottom, making sure you leave your FM antenna up top so you can get it back connected later. We'll start one of our bolts. Put our two shorter ones here on the outside end first. All right, let's put our bottom bolt in. This is going to be our last bolt. And we'll go over and make sure all of them are tight. So now that we have all the bolts in, they're tight, we're going to make sure, we're going to start at the bottom by plugging in our FM antenna here at the bottom of the radio. Your GPS antenna is then going to be the second connection. And last but not least, we're going to plug our USB port back in. And now our radio is back fully connected. Now we're going to come down here to the bottom though. We still need to make sure that we go ahead and we plug in our front speaker pods back in. Find that little factory hole, snap them all back in where they're held in place. All right, so now that we have both speaker pods in, everything's plugged back in, we're gonna go back together with the fairing. So let's get that done. I'm gonna grab the outer part of the fairing first. Just making sure that my harness went back where it was supposed to go down at the bottom. It did. We're gonna start these two outside bolts. I really like this design because from here, holding the fairing, we can start the two bolts that are gonna hold it in place and make sure that we don't drop anything. At that point, we can kind of bring it up where everything lines up perfectly. We'll go ahead and tighten both of these all the way. All right, so we're going to take our bolts that we took out earlier. Remember, it's not been long ago, but we don't want to forget, long bolts go at the top and the bottom. If you see you go in with it and it kind of gets tight, just spin the other way and let it drop into the clip. It is very easy to cross thread these bolts into this fairing. While I'm on this side, I'm going to go ahead and put this speaker grill back on. Just going to rotate your mirror back. I'm going to take this smaller screw that you took out earlier and put it back in the grill. Now we're working on replacement logos to go on the grills. Eventually we'll have those available that will go right on the factory grills to get rid of that Rockford Fosgate logo. You're going to be so happy with this upgrade, you're not going to want to advertise for them any longer. The fit of these fairings is so much better than the older ones. The only thing, like I say, is that these bolts, sometimes they want to try to cross thread into the little clip, but if you would go the opposite direction with your screwdriver till you feel it fall in, it seems to not be an issue. You can get it in. If you just keep going forward, you are going to mess up the bolt and you may have to buy another one. All right, so let's put this speaker grill back on as well. All right, so same order that we removed everything in. So we're going to snap this part back on. Tightening up our one screw here underneath the vent lever. Take this piece of plastic. It has a lip that drops in here first. And then put these 4 screws in where they go. All right, so last but not least, we're just going to put our windshield back on. All right, so last thing, don't forget to plug your headlight back in. Just turn your front end to the right. On the plug here. All right, and just like that, we just showed you how to use one T25 Torx screwdriver to take your fairing off, to pull your speaker pods, to change out to new speakers, and fully put it back together. I think as you've seen, if you could follow these steps, it's not overly difficult to do. I think you can do this on your own, but if this seems to be above and beyond what you're comfortable with, you can make an appointment, bring it to Volunteer Audio. We'd be happy to do this for you. So next we're going to move on to the rear speakers. I'm going to show you what's in there now, as well as what we're going to do to upgrade it. So first, let's go ahead and open up our rear bag, and let's unplug our factory speaker. Just going to wiggle each one of these terminals till they come loose. The clear one is going to be your positive. The larger black one is your negative. Now from this side, we are going to need a new tool. So this is the only other change in tools. We're going to use a T20 Torx to remove these 4 shiny screws that are holding our speaker grill in place. When you're taking the last one out, just make sure you put your hand on the grill so it doesn't fall off. We're now going to shut our lid. I'm just going to pick up and remove that speaker grill. All right, so same tool, 4 more screws right here on top of the speaker. Now if you notice, this is kind of a crazy looking speaker. It is a 5" by 7", but Harley put it in a 6x9 hole. So even though you paid $50,000 for your motorcycle, you did not get a speaker that fit or was the full size so that they could then try to sell it to you afterwards. As part of that, you were supposed to go back to the dealer and get an update done to say that you'd done the 6x9 update. I believe the latest amp update has already made the EQ changes, and if you notice, one of the things they actually mentioned is that it gave you more output to your rear speakers on the latest update. So I don't think you're going to have to go back and get that done now to make your 6x9 sound better. But just like that, we got it out, and they've done a few odd things, probably to try to throw us all for a loop. There's a little cutout here that clears one of the back holes. There's an area here that's a little different to clear a front ledge. I'm going to take one of our 6x9s, and I'm going to do the modification to the outer frame of it to match this. I'll be back in just a minute to show you that and show you how it drops right in. Because when you order this kit from Volunteer Audio, we're going to do that work before you get it. Because an authorized dealer is making the modifications, you're still going to have a full 3-year warranty on those Hertz 6x9s. I'm going to show you just how easy when you get it from us, you can do this and drop them right back in place. All right, so I want to show you what modification had to be done to the speaker. I do this with a set of metal snips. And again, when you buy it from Volunteer Audio, being authorized dealers and 3-year warranty in it, this isn't going to void any warranty to your speaker. I'm also doing no modification to the bike. So you'll notice once you remove that factory 5x7, there's a plastic little dowel that sticks up. I don't want you cutting this off because you spend a lot of money on the bike, we don't want to modify it. There's also this part here that hangs out, as well as we have a 45-degree angle or even steeper angle off here to the side for our grill to fit. So what we do is we snip this corner to clear here. We snip here to clear the dowel, and then I cut a little corner off that outer metal basket so that it now drops right in, uses all the factory screw holes, and our grill goes right back on. And when you get this, we're also going to send you a set of gaskets that just two-way they just stick to the back side and go down, so you'll get a watertight fill back into the lid. So I'm going to grab the gasket, put it on, we'll put the screws in it, we'll flip it over, we'll put our speaker wires in it, we'll turn this thing on and see what it sounds like. All right, so before you put your speaker in the hole, we're going to send you a set of these gaskets. They're just a self-stick, so you're going to peel the backing off. It's going to go on the back side of the speaker. I'll line this up with each one of these holes. So that gasket is going to allow us to seal to that surface. And your terminals are going to go that way. Now you're going to get a left and a right speaker because they're modified opposite of each other to fit in place. So now we've got our gasket on, we're going to drop it in. And we're going to use those factory screws. You had these 4 black screws. Now I will tell you they're a little longer than you need. If you reuse these, you are going to see the back of the screw as it comes to the other side, just right on the inside here. But I don't think it's really an issue. It's not going to cause you any problems. If you want shorter screws, you can pick up some that are just a hair shorter to go in place. And these speakers are waterproof, so no problems getting them wet. These are designed for motorcycle use. Same thing with the front fairing speakers. So if that's a concern of yours, don't be worried. We're not going to set you up to fail. All right, so after you have those 4 speaker screws tight, set your grill back in place, open up your lid, and start a couple of these grill screws. All right, so last step, we're just going to take both of these terminals, we're going to take a pair of pliers, and we're just going to squeeze them a little tighter to make sure they stay plugged in. And remember, the black one is the negative, so we're going to plug it into the negative terminal. And the clear one is the positive. There we go, they're all the way in. All right, so I keep getting asked, when are the plug-and-play amp setups coming out for the new CVOs to go along with these speakers? And what I want to do is give you an update on what's taking the time. First off, these bikes came out almost a full year before the 24 models are going to be shipping. And all of them came with a Rockford amp in it. Now, this is the first year for this big infotainment system, and it uses a new technology called A to B. It's almost like a Cat 6 data cable, but it's only 2 wires that run from the radio to the amp. That is where you get your EQ, that's where you get your fader, that's where you get your signal into the amplifier as far as speaker wires, but there are no actual speaker wires going to the amplifier. So it's not as simple as taking the amp out and dropping another one in place. Now if you go on the outside or the back end or output of this Rockford amplifier, you don't have a lot of room to fit the amplifier you'd want. You'd also have to have a DSP to try to correct the terrible signal that's coming out of that amplifier. So with all that being said, we're working on an A to B interface specifically for these CVOs. So it's in the engineering stages now. We're working on that data. We're trying to get all of it working right, but we've got to get it working right. We've got to test it. And that's part of why we have a Street Glide and a Road Glide. We wanted to test both systems completely to make sure that what we produce is going to work really, really well. We're also waiting on those January, the 2024 models are coming out, and we want to see what flashes Harley releases and see, do we need a DSP built in to that A to B module? That could be something that we do to make sure that we can fix the output if the radio has a poor signal. But the new flashes should take care of that, and they may simplify this greatly. So until January comes out, we're kind of in limbo. We've engineered a lot of parts, but they're not going to go into production until we know what the future holds. So hopefully first quarter next year, second quarter at the latest, we'll have a full plug-and-play solution to add the amplifier onto this radio, keeping all your warranties, not cutting anything up, but giving you a tremendous amount of extra power over this amp. Now I'm going to let you hear what this sounds like with our new Hertz speakers with the latest amp update. It's November 15th, so we did the latest amp update they released earlier this month. We're going to turn it on, and I'm going to show you my recommended EQ settings and something I find a little comical about what the latest update did to some of the preset EQs. All right, so I've got my phone connected. I've got our copyright-free music pulled up, and I told you I was going to tell you about the latest amp update, something it did that I thought was kind of funny. So we had a terrible amount of added bass with the HD Signature EQ previously on the bike, and I'd showed you how that if you went in and you maxed out the first 5 bands of your 7-band EQ through this 80 Hertz right here in the middle and split the difference with the 250, that it was really clear compared to the stock EQ settings, and we got a lot more output. It sounded a lot better. It still sounds pretty good in this place, but after the latest update, I found that it probably needs to be a little closer to that. They've took a little bit of the bass out of it, but I did do a little testing, and I thought it was really funny. If I go to the HD Signature EQ, and after you do your update, I want you to do this because you're going to find it's hilarious. Go in and go to the HD Signature one. So we're going to go back out, we're going to go to settings, we're going to go down to our EQ. If you go to HD Signature, it's the very top one, you're going to find it has quite a bit of bass, but it has a little distortion to it. That may be good to you. Some people think distortion sounds good. I like clarity over distortion, so I'm going to default back to the other one. What I found is HD Signature, when you select it, is the exact same output as if you select our custom EQ and you take these all the way to the top. It's the exact same output. So I'm going to play this in this mode, or what you would call the HD Signature. I'll go back to that so you can see it. Let's go up to HD Signature Tune. That is just your 7 bands of EQ turned all the way up. That's normally what, if you do that to most radios, you're going to be maxing out the bass, maxing out the treble, maxing out the mid. You're clipping your amplifier and you're blowing speakers. Now, in this case, they don't seem to be quite that drastic because in the background they've hid and they made you think you turned it all the way up, but you really haven't. Let's check out what it sounds like, and we'll go from there. Check out just how good this song sounds now. All right, so what I instantly noticed is I have more clarity, it's more musical. I can hear the edges of the strings. I think my treble is better in the front, my bass is better in the back. And with this EQ setting you see right here, which is just 2 clicks down on the 80 Hertz, 1 click down at 250, and the other one's maxed out, I don't have a lot of distortion, but I have quite a bit of output. and I think it sounds really, really good for the fact we're using the stock amplifier, and all we did was upgrade speakers. If you do this, you're going to see there's a significant improvement. And you're probably going to tell me, if you're the type of person that just wants to hear it, that this is enough for you. But if you want that next level system, you can do this now, make it so much better, and as soon as our amp comes out, spring or even second quarter, you can buy that, add it to it, and make it even better. So I hope this video was informative. I hope it showed you everything you wanted to know about upgrading your speakers. Now, this is the Street Glide. We have the Road Glide as well. That video will be following, and you'll be able to check that out as well. So if you have the other bike, hold on, just a few more days, we'll show you the video where we do the Road Glide also. Same exact steps on the back, a little different on the front. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. You'll see all the latest content on the latest in Harley audio. You'll also see things like Chromeworks. We do the custom dynamics lighting. So as new things come out for these bikes, we'll be showing it to you, how to install it, making sure you're educated on what you need to get for your bike so you don't make the mistake of buying something that you end up throwing in the trash. Also, if you want to talk to us about this, if you have questions, call us 1-844-30-AUDIO. If you don't have a new CVO, no problem. We do all the other bikes as well. So if you got a Harley, give us a call. We'll build the perfect audio system for your budget, for your music listening preferences, and we'll make sure that it is completely plug and play and so easy to do. You can follow our other step-by-step videos. Like this video, it moves it up in search results, it helps volunteer audio, and it helps other people find it as well, and that is something we're really appreciative of you doing. Please comment below with any questions you have. We'll be quick to answer those, and I love to hear from you. I love the encouragement a lot of y'all send us. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, God bless.